We have a quorum and it's 5 o'clock.
All right, let's go ahead and get started. Do we have any corrections to the minutes?
Before we get started, Tad, if you don't mind, I just wanted to quickly give our new member an opportunity to introduce
Oh
herself.
yeah, that's a good idea.
So, Thea, go ahead.
Yeah, wonderful. Hi, everyone. My name is Thea Guerin, new member of the Pedestrian, Bicycle, and Transit Committee. I've been in Middleton for about 2 years now. I live right by downtown Middleton. My day job, I'm a economic researcher at the Urban Institute, national organization based in DC. I work on economic research policy. I have a background in urban planning. But that feels like a long time ago, and really just interested in being a part of this important work that you all are doing and figuring out ways to support.
Welcome. It's great having you here. And Thea is replacing Tom Yost, who has left the committee. He resigned. And then the only other housekeeping item is that Noah has indicated that he needs to leave around 6 o'clock. But we should have a quorum without you, Noah, if you end up leaving before the meeting is over.
Okay, sounds good.
I know we have another member who may be not here for the whole meeting as well, too, but we'll see what happens as we go. All right, turning it back to you.
All right.
Ted.
Are there any corrections to the minutes?
We have 2 sets of minutes.
Yes.
These were prepared by uh, our engineering staff, Sean Stowski. I think we're good.
Yep, hearing no corrections, the meeting minutes stand as read. So item number 1, policy regarding the use of green colored pavement markings. Mark?
Yeah, so this is, I thought, would be appropriate to discuss before we get into item number 2. We've obviously been talking about this on and off for several years. I recently learned that well, from my travels in the Madison area and other other countries, I almost said, in the Madison area and other communities. Um, Obviously, a lot of green is being applied, and I did hear from Madison that they have received approval from DOT to install green colored pavement crossings or markings at the Beltline on and off ramps, which to me was all I needed to hear because that's a US highway and the concern of federal highway, US DOT policy, FHWA policy. If the DOT in the state is allowing it, then as far as I'm concerned, there's a green light, no pun intended. So I'm recommending this as a policy for Middleton and would welcome your feedback. Make this a little larger so you can see it. Where a paved shared use path intersects a street or crosses a driveway serving a commercial land use, such as Costco or the Goodwill store. And then secondly, where a marked bike lane extends through a street intersection, including through any right turn lane. So the first example, the first bullet, I'm providing examples. The second one would be, for example, Parmenter Street at in front of Bruce Company and Culver's. When you're traveling north there's a right turn lane, and the bike lane gets carried through there, and that's a place where we could consider also supplementing with the green dashed green feature. Main concern has been these shared use paths to draw attention to two-way bike traffic at some of our path crossings at commercial driveways. That has his hand up. Yeah.
Yeah, just wondering, I was reading the background and it said that engineering has some concerns about it. What were the concerns?
The concerns is that the MUTCD, the Manual on Uniform Traffic Control Devices, does not specifically authorize the use of green colored pavement markings. And so their concern, as I understand, Sean, over the years and the consulting staff, is that there could potentially be a liability issue raised when you introduce something that's non-standard. I think that's just a general mindset of engineering staff. And I understand that, I get that. There have been some communities that sought and obtained special permission to apply green pavement markings for bike lanes. It's been less common for bike paths, but very clearly we have examples in the Madison area that I think are highly effective. This one that I showed as an example here along Atwood Avenue. I took that picture last summer. It just really does so much to, as a bicyclist, to help raise awareness of a conflict area you might be approaching, but more importantly, it gives a cue to the motorist that, so often we see motorists not stop at the stop bar. And this is just one more visual cue for them to pause their vehicle that outweighs any bicyclist by a lot. And it can only improve safety as far as I'm concerned. Is there an extra cost? I don't have cost information for you, but yes, these things, there's a cost to this over traditional crosswalk markings. But I'm trying to provide a framework here for where this would get installed. That doesn't mean they have to be installed in all these locations, but like at residential. But I think the commercial driveways, we should just have that as a standard policy. And Lisa's waiting to be recognized.
Okay, thanks, Mark.
Yep.
So would we have to get WSDOT's permission or approval of each specific instance, or are you thinking we would get approval for a policy? And then another question related to where would this go? So would apartments be considered residential or commercial for the purpose of driveways? And then also, what about roundabouts? Because I know in places where, or like, I think is it Allen Boulevard intersecting with University? There's, the right turn lane for cars splits off and the bike lane continues. A situation like that where the bike lane is going to be crossing, or I'll say the driving lane will be crossing a bike lane to accommodate drivers. Would that be another place to put green paint?
Can you clarify the last example again? I didn't follow which example.
I'll see if I can find one on a map to share with you.
Okay.
Because I'm looking at the figure 9B6 that you included, and those make sense. But then thinking about roundabouts and other places where I just know when I've been driving and I see a bike lane on a busier street that's crossed at some point as you approach an intersection. I
can answer that. I know what you mean now, and I can easily answer that. So thinking of the Parmenter Discovery Drive roundabout by Parmenter Circle, bike lanes at roundabouts are guided to to a ramp where they jump onto the sidewalk, if you will. That's a pretty standard design. I, as a bicyclist, seldom use those ramps just because I have the confidence to keep my speed going instead of diverting into, there's usually some diversion required to do these ramps. If they're well designed, it's not too bad. So once you get onto a ramp and then you want to cross, you're directed to cross at a traditional crosswalk, leaving the roundabout. on every leg of the roundabout has a crosswalk. So I was envisioning that those crosswalks, that's a good question. Um, I don't know. I guess I haven't thought about the crosswalk example. I certainly would use like where the Cayuga connector is going to connect when we design that and build that this year. I was envisioning that we would have on the south leg of Parmenter at the roundabout. I would envision, because that's part of our path continuity of the path system, I would envision that crossing being in green, certainly, because that's a two-way bike traffic area that we can expect, as opposed to maybe this other legs, which would be more incidental, where somebody, wouldn't be that different from a bicyclist traveling along a sidewalk and then choosing to cross at a crosswalk at an intersection like a pedestrian. So I guess that's my roundabout. I answered that in a roundabout way, and that was also an accident. But to answer your other questions, WISDOT, I don't see a need for WISDOT to sign off on this policy. I was envisioning that this would be a recommendation to the council and endorsing that as a policy. But you are raising a good question. Do we formally need them to sign off? I would say that wherever they have jurisdiction on a highway facility, yes, they need to sign off. But for anything that's local jurisdiction, I think what I would want to do is get the county to be aware of our policy. But I know that the county has been not objecting to these crossings, because Fitchburg's Fish Hatchery Road is a county road, and McKee Road has them, and that's a county road. So I'm not troubled by the concern that the county would have I don't think the county would have a concern. So I think this is just an internal city policy. And then your other question about apartments and what counts as commercial. I was using commercial in the sense of non-single family residential. So we can clarify that if you feel that's necessary, but I was thinking anything that is basically a multi-tenant driveway for businesses or residences would have the green. But if it's a single family driveway, it wouldn't. Frankly, I can't even think of an example of a single family driveway intersecting with any of our paths at this moment, especially since we went at Goodwill, we went behind those houses along Century Avenue there. So maybe there are some examples, but none come to mind.
Okay, thanks. And I just texted you an image showing the Allen Boulevard type of intersection I was thinking of. But the roundabout's a good example too.
Okay. That's the one by Chalmers, is the one you sent me. Did you mean to text it or to email it? I can't pull it up this way, so it's okay. I can pull it, I can find it here. Any other questions? Tad, you're muted, so I'll just recognize Brad.
Yeah, that's
I-
fine.
Sorry. So the thought is that we're establishing a policy,
Right.
but we don't have to.
Well, I think we do, because that's the first thing that our engineer is going to say and has been saying is, what is our policy for where these get installed. So I think the council should give the guidance to the Public Works Committee and staff that this is what the city's policy is going forward, so that it gets incorporated into future design projects, for example, the next agenda item. So yeah.
Sorry. What I meant was, our policy will say these are the places that we use it, but we don't have to, or these are the places that we're, or these are the places that we use it and we're doing it in all of them as appropriate.
As a matter of policy, yeah, I sort of garbled that earlier. I meant to say that this is the expectation that they would be put at these locations as a matter of without any. It just becomes a standard.
Okay. Taking University in Madison into campus, I was just looking yesterday because I knew we were talking about this. It seems like, and that's all newly painted. with the reconstruction, it seems like they inconsistently put green in over commercial. Like it's over some and not over others. And this is generally on the other side of Midvale towards
Right.
downtown.
Um,
Um,
yeah,
and that didn't. It seems like it's sort of hodgepodge, but I just don't know what the policy was and how they decided to do it because some are green and some are not.
right. And I'm not going to go to the ones on University Avenue because those are so recent that they're not showing up on air photos yet.
Okay.
This is Fish Hatchery, which again is County Highway D. And here's an example of where they have, this path on the west side of Fish Hatchery is a 10-foot wide path. Here's the crossing. And then here's a driveway example. And it's not clear to me why they do dashed, a standard ladder type crossing here. That's something we can delve into further, but I didn't want to get too much into the weeds. But this is clearly, what I'm advocating is very similar to, it's meant to replicate what they're doing in Fitchburg.
Okay.
And for that matter, in Madison too. I just don't have good visuals. Atwood Avenue is another one, but that's also so recent that I don't have aerial photography of that. There are some cases in Madison on University that have unfortunately gotten faded. Oh, I know an example we can go to. Regent Street. Let me sorry about the zooming here. Here we go. So the Southwest Bike Path, here's one of my favorite examples, actually. So this is the corner of Charter and by the power plant on campus. This is where the Southwest Bike Path comes through, and you can see here how they, it's obviously a very unusual intersection in that you go diagonally across it. There are several of those in Madison now, but the green really helps that jump out. I think they do this. Yeah, here's another one here. But then for some reason, this one's not, but maybe that's been upgraded now. I think Madison is making a concerted effort now in the last couple of years, especially with the bus rapid transit reconfigurations. Tad and I saw that when we did our bike ride a few months ago. So they're all in on the green colored pavement. So a lot of these aerial images are out of date. So again, this would be a recommendation to the Public Works Committee and Council. I would forward this to, if you decide that you're comfortable with this, or if you want to tweak it a little bit, I would forward it to city engineering, and they would then, I presume, take it to their committee. And since it's a referral, or at least it would maybe come from the council as a referral, some way or another, it would advance out of this committee and get discussed by council.
All right, are we comfortable with the wording, or do we want to tweak things? I'm taking the oh, sorry.
Sorry, Ted, to jump in.
Yeah, no worries.
Do we need to provide guidance too when to use dashed versus solid or not?
I again didn't go into all those details. I guess what I would do is, encourage, rather than getting that granular, is that leave that up to city engineering staff to interpret based on their peers, the peer communities, how that's best done. I will add, and I think I put that in my memo, that Madison's bicycle pedestrian coordinator, here it is, anticipates that these standards will be addressed in the next update of the state's design handbook, which unfortunately has had only minor updates for 20 years. It sounds like it's going to be comprehensively rewritten. Well, she says the next update, so maybe it won't be rewritten, so maybe it'll just be tweaked, but she thinks that will be, and she's in the know with these things, so she thinks that will be addressed. But in the meantime, I don't see any harm in adopting this policy, given what clearly is being allowed to happen in Madison by DOT.
So one of the things that I would, if I put myself into the engineer's shoes, I guess, if this policy were to go through, one of the questions I would have as an engineer would be, so if this policy is in place now, does this mean that we have to do this in every instance that this policy recommends in the next month, in the next year?
Oh.
We'll get those questions, I'm assuming.
Yeah, and maybe what you would want to do is add some language, I mean, about, in conjunction with street retrofits or, I think that's a valid point, Todd. You and Lisa will suddenly get pressure and because there's money involved, the city can't suddenly do all these in 3 months, So my thought was that this gets rolled out as improvements, kind of like what we do with our sidewalk improvements that, the city goes through a section of the city every year, and as we identify improvements or squares that need to be replaced, they just, improve those per policy. So I think you're asking a good question. I think it just is a phased in approach. So if you want to add some language to that effect, maybe say to use green colored pavement in the following circumstances as in conjunction with well, here's the thing. So Goodwill and Costco specifically, we've had complaints and concerns raised. Christian's been very vocal about that, and understandably so. I too. The Costco driveway needs to be, that's something that I would recommend we address as quickly as we can, and we're going to put up a sign in the meantime. So Lisa has her hand up.
Yep, Lisa?
So I think this is a really valid point. I don't know if we want to get into wordsmithing this now because this will have to go through Public Works, correct? And then be
Yeah.
put to policy format with some examples shown. So I think Mark, it might be sufficient just to note the question, the policy question we still need to address, because I think the short answer is no, we would not want this to automatically apply because of what you just described.
Yeah.
So as long as we know that's something we need to tweak in the future, I'm comfortable with passing this on to Public Works and trying to flesh it out a little bit more with Carrie's guidance to that committee.
I think it's just good to get the ball rolling and let the engineering staff tweak it, like Lisa was saying. I see the merit in that.
That makes sense to me too.
I was thrilled when I learned that was happening in Madison, though. I've been wanting some example like that.
All right, so Mark, what form do you want our recommendation in? I feel like, huh?
Go ahead.
I feel like recent things we're going to be expected to move for the recommendation.
Yeah, I think what you could do is simply
Okay.
make a motion with the
Yep.
language that's on the screen, and I
Yes.
will pass it along to our engineering staff with some of the comments that need to be addressed.
All right, sounds good. So I will move that we recommend to the Public Works Committee and Common Council the establishment of the policy using the language that's here in the recommendation. Do I hear a second?
I'll second.
Who was the second?
Dale.
Dale.
Okay.
All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? The ayes have it. All right, next item. Century and Allen Lake traffic signal upgrade study, etc.
This is a big project that we're going to be doing this year. Very exciting. And this is where we could have the green pavement treatment here. So I put this in the packet for you to comment on if you have any concerns. That we've had this discussion, I think some discussion about this previously. But now that we have this policy recommendation, I think that the implication of it is that this would become green. Are there any other, one of the concerns I had was having a two-stage crossing for bicyclists and requiring this turn, but I'm advised that that's really the only way it can be designed. There is precedent for this in Madison too. The John Nolan and North Shore intersection is similar to this. But I just wanted to give you an opportunity to review these drawings. Public Works Committee has as well. This is the Century Allen intersection, and then there's one as well for the northeast side by the apartment buildings, the Arbor Lakes on the northeast side here. And so this is where the North Mendota path crosses. So I just wanted to see if you had any comments.
Just for my knowledge, Mark, on the Q intersection, the island is hatched out. Does that mean it's being removed?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, just this is in District 4, and since I've been older, I've had a lot of concern about this intersection. I've gotten a lot of calls and folks that are having issues, pedestrians, bicyclists, navigating this intersection. So just greatly appreciate the efforts to make this a safer intersection. Looking forward to it.
Have your contacts been limited to vehicles or mostly pedestrians? And I know you said they were pedestrians, but I mean, has it been exclusively pedestrian and bicycle safety, or has there been vehicle concerns?
Exclusively pedestrians and bicycles.
And as part of this, we are planning to extend the path south to fill the gap in front of Harbor and all the way to Midtown Pub where the existing path ends today. So I'm very happy by this. The only then gap that will remain in the network once this is installed is east of Middleton in front of the golf course and then the Holy Wisdom Monastery. That will be the remaining gap. Otherwise, if you haven't noticed lately, Madison has completed, or the county, I should say, Dane County has completed the loop around the lake all the way past Governor Nelson State Park, east to Westport Road by Skipper Buds. That's all now completed. It's absolutely wonderful with wayfinding signs. You don't have any, I mean, you're not, I don't expect a super technical discussion of this. I just wanted to give you the opportunity to comment if you had any questions or, I don't know that there isn't any the Public Works Committee isn't expecting a motion from you. It wasn't referred to you. They just,
Right.
I just felt since Ped Bike Transit really should take ownership of these intersections as well. So.
Yep. Yeah, within the context of what we can do about it, nothing jumps out at me as just being substantially worse. And several details look much better. So I am
Okay. If that's all the feedback, that's fine.
Yeah, I'm happy enough.
And then I'll note that this, for the green colored pavement policy, this would be an example of where that would be used. So I will have the
Right.
minutes reflect that as well.
Any other feedback? All right, sounds like we're moving on to item number 3, which is telling me what I missed. Okay. So I reviewed, and I believe, yes, there's a link in the notes
Yep.
to Madison's Complete Green Streets Guide. These are my notes of as I was reading through the entire thing, things I thought were strengths about it, weaknesses, some comments. They have a fairly thorough selection of street types. And then I also have notes from skimming the Federal Highway Administration's Safe Systems website. And then the last thing I included in there is a potential outline for our own Complete Streets Guide. So I'm looking for feedback, basically reactions to my reactions, whether the outline looks good is kind of a leading question, but whether the outline looks satisfactory or if there are other things that you think I'm missing, that kind of things I could clarify, that kind of thing. In particular, anywhere you're thinking, Tad, you're too in the weeds and you need to explain these things, that would be great to hear, because I am certain that is the case. Lisa.
My initial reaction, Tad, and thank you for putting all this together. My initial reaction is please don't let our policy be 64 pages long. I mean, our
Agreed.
the shorter, I really think, I look at this and I wonder, did a consultant write this? And the answer is probably yes. So brevity is appreciated.
And Madison's policy is, or their guide is 71 pages long. And I also want to echo what Lisa said. I appreciate, Tad, you taking the taking the lead on this and distilling what you've gotten out of it.
Thea?
Yeah, Ted, I appreciated how you clarified audience at the top, and I was curious, just for my benefit, if you could say a little bit more about how you expect council members and members of the public to use the guide.
Oh, yeah, that's still a good question. So I initially categorized, as I was going through, as I was going through Madison's guide, several things about it, and I mentioned this initially as weaknesses, and then I kind of stepped on my own toes with my own audience mention at the top of my outline but so if you scroll down a bit more, Mark, so toward the second to last bullet point in weaknesses, so the equity section, it's a great concept. The section itself seems intended for alders, which is important, but like to me, the name Complete Streets Guide makes it sound like it's for designers. And then, like I said, I stepped on my own toes by my outline is basically for alders. So that thing that I was, as a result, I'm starting to think this is kind of what I'm thinking is that the guide is kind of an explainer of where we're going and why. Because of course, traffic engineering is not something, transportation engineering in general is not something that, it's something that everybody interacts with on a daily basis. And so everyone has an opinion on it, but very few people actually know, know the background of and what the latest information is. So that's what I really want to try and distill. And yeah, get it in as short a format as possible so that people not just will sometimes think, I wonder what the policy is, but when they open it up, they'll actually say, oh, I can get through this and actually look at it. I the first item is introduction and executive summary, and really I think that's the executive summary of an executive summary with pictures. That's kind of what I'm shooting for. The expanded information about the facility designs will appear in the other components, because of course we have standard detail drawings that need to be updated. We have lots of other stuff that also needs to be updated to mesh with this guide. Did I actually answer your question, or did I just kind of ramble?
I think so. I think, I mean, again, I'm brand new to this, so I have more
Yes.
questions, but that's just probably, again, me being new, but I guess I'm still not sure if the purpose of the guide is to like
Oh,
alders understand when like this committee proposes something, why, right? Is it focused more on the why
yes.
or on the how, I guess?
Yes, because so what we've seen since we adopted our complete streets policy is that we give complete streets recommendations,
Mhm.
and people kind of don't believe us. So by putting together this guide, by making sure it references, the state of the art, we will have something that that alders can look at and get a feel for what we're recommending, and so that we can also point to and say, hey, we're not crazy.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
Lisa again.
I would go further, Tad. You were very diplomatic there. I mean, sometimes council adopts a policy and then it doesn't get fully implemented. And so then we go back and in this case, it's Tad who took the idea of writing a guidance document. The Sustainability Committee has done the same thing. They've written a guidance document for the city's sustainable purchasing policy, because we've had a sustainable purchasing policy. It just hasn't been fully implemented. It's not that the council doesn't support it. It just is not being carried out. So this will be a way to make it clear that the policy that council passed and adopted for the city wasn't just a feel-good thing. It's intended to be implemented, and here's how that should be done.
Todd?
Yeah, thanks for all your work on this, Ted. And I like the outline. And my next comment is going to come from my other job, my biologist hat. So I think the outline's good because it thoroughly identifies why we're doing it, what we're doing, how we're doing it. But I also think that, anytime we pursue something pretty major like this, there should be an evaluation component. And, you know, I don't necessarily think that we need to get into the minor details of specific performance metrics and all that kind of stuff. But I think that evaluating some of these initiatives in some way, shape, or form, or at least saying that we will do it, will be beneficial for future initiatives like this. And I also think that it would help, you know, approval of this by other decision makers. You know, this has been implemented in other cities and these are the results, but we also plan to evaluate the effectiveness of this in the future. And like I said, I don't think you need to get into specifics, but just acknowledging that there will be an evaluation component, I think is important.
All right, thanks.
So I could work with you, Tad, to, we don't expect our committee members to do all the work, and that's what city
Right.
Center is for. So I want you to know that I will be here working with you to develop this.
Do we have somebody who can help us with the pretty pictures?
Yeah, we, like, I'm not as good with that stuff, but we do have people on staff. We have our communications manager and our my colleague Daphne is quite good with graphics.
Especially important, I think, is to have like some decent diagrams for the intersections and the travel ways in general. I feel like seeing those kinds of things helps a lot of people. Carrie?
I have a question because I know like what comes up a lot, and I don't know if this is where this would lie, but it seems like people always are like if we bring up like raised crosswalks or raised intersections as like ways of like, you know, calming traffic, helping pedestrian safety. Like it's always like it seems like we have to review like what is that? Is this where you would kind of define some of those methods and
Oh, yeah.
okay. I just wanted to make sure because I feel like that's always brought up again. It's like, okay, what do we mean by raised crosswalks?
Yeah.
When should those be used? In what scenarios? Why are they beneficial? You know, all those kind of things. Is that part of this?
Right. Yeah. Especially raised crosswalks and raised intersections. That was one of the things that kind of disappointed me. The biggest thing that disappointed me about Madison's guide is that they did not treat the intersection specifically. There's a lot of, they have a lot of notes of you need to think about the intersections, but for all the diagrams they have of all their various street types, they don't have any model intersections. And I really think we need that because it's like you said, it's not just re-explaining, it's showing what an intersection with a raised crosswalk looks like is much more powerful than just talking about it.
Right. Yeah, that's where I was just glancing through the guide now and I was looking for that. And that's where I was wondering.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I did a search on intersections, and I mean, I think, Tad, what you're saying is there isn't really a section devoted to it. They're kind of sprinkled throughout the document.
Right. So they have, right, exactly. So they mention raised intersections when talking about the transit priority overlay for that particular street type. But there's no depiction of, and they mention it a lot in additional considerations, but there's no depiction of what that looks like. Now, I do think we also have an advantage over Madison in that we all know the exceptions. We just talked about one tonight, but most of our intersections are much simpler in plan. than some of the intersections that Madison has. So I think we'll have a slightly easier time showing some of those diagrams and being able to think about how they apply.
Yeah, page 61 seems helpful in their guide. In particular, just because it's like showing, 'cause I feel like that comes up a lot for us, right? Like speed management.
Yes.
They have it there, like raised intersection, raised crosswalk, but again, I think some like, and maybe it's in here somewhere, but like just more explanation of like, what is it? Why
Yeah.
is it beneficial? Mhm.
I hadn't actually focused on this graphic. I like this.
Yeah, I think like more of
Yeah, I
like
like it
these
too.
type of things, like less words, right? More like more images, and then like kind of these like reference things I think would be helpful because, and again, you always have to look at the situation. Each situation is different, but at least this would give considerations, right? Like we have this type of street. This is what we should consider.
Well, you're always taught not to, not to plagiarize, but I think as there's nothing wrong with borrowing really good ideas either. So since the work's been done, I think we've got a good launching pad here. Noah, don't listen to what I'm saying. You're still in high school.
The thing against plagiarization is for when you're, yeah, exactly. Is for when you're doing new work.
Right.
We're not doing anything new.
We'll give credit.
We're
We'll give
trying to
credit.
just establish best practice here.
Exactly.
Um,
Obviously joking. We'll give credit. All right, so I'm happy to work with to devote some time to this. It won't be in the next few days. Probably not before it'll probably be after I return to the office later this month. But it's good to get your feedback, and it sounds like Tad, nobody has any significant concerns other than make sure we don't get unwieldy with
Right.
our policy, which is always good advice. So.
Oh, I have one other thought, but I
mhm.
don't know if this makes sense. Ted, I know you're taking the lead on this. Would it make sense to partner with somebody from Public Works or like another committee to like, and just in terms of like, oh, here's some things that always come up? I don't know who that would be. I would, unfortunately, I can't volunteer. Like I don't have the capacity, but
Oh yeah, oh yeah. Well, and it's less I'm taking the lead and more I was the only one who sort of did have the capacity. Yeah, I'm definitely open to that. Um, if we can, I mean, at some point we are gonna have to talk to Public Works more generally anyway. Um, so if we can think of somebody right away to work with,
So a couple things. One, our city engineer is retiring in a few months, and I don't foresee him because of things he needs to clean up before I should address, I should say, not clean up. The loose ends that he wants to tie up. That's what I should have said. Before he leaves. So I don't think he's looking to add this to his plate.
right.
I obviously want to get his perspectives in a general sense, but I don't expect that he'll devote hours to this effort. On the plus side, we have in the planning department received authorization for an additional staff person, which will free up some existing staff time a little bit to devote on this to devote on projects like this. We also will have an intern this summer. So I can't speak for Abby, but I think there's some ways we can adjust our workflow to devote more time to this. I mean, active trend. Oh, and actually, I have an update for this later on as well. But I'll get to that when we get to the active transportation plan. But kind of segueing, I think, anyway.
Yeah, I think the segues fine. I think unless anybody has anything else. All right. Staff updates.
So, we have in our complete streets policy, we have, the goal of assessing it every year, its effectiveness and how we're doing, and we have not done that yet, so it's high time we do that. I have started reaching out to my colleagues, and I've gathered some data from a couple members already. I'm actually looking for the here it is. So here is our performance measures section of our adopted complete streets policy. Annually measure and report to the council at a minimum the following performance measures. And so some of this is somewhat labor intensive. Most of it is just looking at reports and databases. I have gotten, for example, the street trees. I've gotten that data already from our forestry staff. I don't need to go into the details of that, but I thought you'd be interested to know they planted 140 trees. So, I've got some data like that. So there's something, my goal is to have this for you at the next meeting. That's really what I have for this item. It's not really, it wasn't meant to be an action item, just giving you an update that this is on our radar. We're working on it. Then for the active transportation plan, I have an update for you there too. I met with the Metropolitan Planning Organization staff before the holidays, because I learned from them that they actually are launching a similar planning effort. I learned this a couple months ago, actually. And so, and I know those people very well. I serve on the MPO policy board, so I had my ears perked up when I heard that they were going to be working on this. So what they excel at is they provide mapping data and resources to communities in the metro area. And so obviously we want to collect what information they have, and not, we don't have to reinvent the wheel. They are planning to start working on their outreach efforts with communities in the middle of this year, 2025. So midsummer. Madison is also working on an active transportation plan, and they just hired a new staff person, Kevin Lutke, who I know. I'm actually, it's a tremendous hire for Madison. He's coming from Tool Design, and he just is replacing Renee Calloway, who's leaving the position. And so Kevin's going to bring a bolt of energy to that role, and there's coordination there. There's benefits, obviously, and a synergy of working collaboratively at a regional level. Cottage Grove also is working on theirs, and they're hiring a consultant to help with theirs. So there's definitely a lot of interest in this. Some Prey has already prepared a plan. So there's an advantage of having put our effort on hold. I still need to get back to you on the results of the survey. My colleague that we did last fall, Daphne, has almost completed the analysis she was doing and putting it in a format that we can discuss at a future meeting. We had 375 responses, as I reported previously. So the goal is to get that to you in the next month or so, and then this summer resume work on our active transportation plan. Any questions? And then last, we have community work plan, which I did update a little bit from last fall. We have, I talked about the ATP already, Bike Week. I actually have had a couple discussions. Capital Brewery is wanting to step up things that they're doing. In fact, I reached out to one of their owners to see what they were up to this year, and he had some ideas. And also the Downtown Middleton Business Association, which I belong to. They are, I just got appointed to their board. So I mentioned to them as part of Bike Week, it'd be fun to have a downtown event organized, supported by the business community. I was thinking especially of promoting bike benefits, the helmet program where you get a discount for having a sticker on your helmet. And we did a group ride last year downtown. So I think having some sort of I was hoping to do something. They do a lot of events called like sip and stroll, shop and stroll, things like that. And I was hoping we could go with roll and stroll. The problem is that there's a fundraiser in August every year with the Carbone Cancer Center, which is already named that phrase. So I think that's problematic to go with that. So we'll have to come up with something else. But anyway, the point is we've started putting some thoughts into Bike Week events for this year. I'm happy to have anybody else, any brainstorms you have for events and if you want to roll up your sleeves and do some work on this bike rodeo we've talked about with the police department for that week as well. So that's kind of an update there. Week Without Driving is something that Alder Hanairo spearheaded last fall. I imagine we'll probably work on that again it's an annual thing, right, Lisa? Implementation guide we talked about already. Noah, you and I haven't really had a chance to talk much about what we can do at the high school, so I would look to you for some ideas you have there. Kirsten worked with the police department. Unfortunately, that was not a very effective. It was an unfortunate circumstance because there was an emergency call, so it didn't. We may have to revisit that again this year as another training opportunity for the police department. And the last one we talked about too. So that's a report on work plan items.
All right. Does anybody have any specific requests for future agenda items? We can always email Mark.
Yeah.
If you think of it later.
Yeah, and as a reminder for the new member, for Thea, we want to avoid using reply all for quorum reasons. We don't want to have we want to keep our communication, make sure we don't run afoul of the open meetings law. So it's just a little tip that is not always intuitive for new people who join a committee, but.
Sorry, Mark, do you mind repeating that? You said avoid reply all, so.
Yeah, so don't, if I send something, if something's informational, regardless of who it comes from, I mean, theoretically, the chair could send something too, although I wouldn't advise that, certainly, unless it's just here's an interesting article. I would encourage you to always do that through city staff. We want to avoid getting into discussions between committee members. Because with a reply all, I mean, if you talk individually for example, if you wanted to discuss something with Tad, that as chair, that's fine, but we just don't want to have emails going around where somebody could say, oh, you're doing business behind the scenes out of the public eye.
Got it.
So that's the general. And then if I didn't already, there's a guidebook that we can forward to you. Did I share that with you? Okay. Excellent. That's all I have.
All right, that's the end of our agenda. We are adjourned.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
You got done in time, so.
For Noah, yeah.
All right. Thank you all. And
Thank
Lisa.
you.
Yep, thank you.
Good night, everybody.
Bye.